From onboarding new hires to running payroll to managing insurance and employee benefits, human resources can get really overwhelming really quickly. As a busy business owner, we know you don't have time to sort through it all.
That's where we come in. As the team behind Core Business Resources, a niche HR consulting firm, we have over 50 years of combined experience with helping business owners and managers navigate all things HR.
And don't worry, our podcast will be way more fun than reading an HR handbook.
Which you need, by the way.
On this podcast, we'll answer questions about all things HR, like, is my business too small to offer insurance to my team?
Or is it time to bring my staff back into the office?
Or do I really have to worry about diversity?
I'm Aaliyah, the CEO and founder of Core Business Resources, or CBR HR.
I'm Megan, lead HR consultant for CBR.
And I'm Liz, CBR's HR and Insurance and Benefits Specialist.
And together, we're your human resource.
All right, so as part of learning about walking the line, I'm going to give you guys some scenarios to talk about. And I essentially want to know if this is something that we should walk the line very carefully, and maybe it crosses the line for us in our HR practice. And we really need to tell the client, no, I don't feel comfortable doing that.
Okay.
And then I want to know how you would tell them that, if so. So sort of practicing that, letting them know in a nice way and why it is that sort of crosses outside of HR, which is, sometimes we tell clients and they're like, oh, I had no idea you couldn't do that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So scenario one.
Okay.
You are working with a client who you're sort of getting into the weeds of their contracts. You're really starting to look at them in detail. Well, they keep handing you, some employees have this contract, some employees have that contract, and they say, can you just make them all the same? What do you do?
In HR, we work in cooperation with legal or with the legal team, typically the employment lawyer for our clients. Happens all the time. But what we try to really do is impress upon our clients that when it comes to contracts, as far as creation of them, that's all legal. Employment lawyers should really create the contract as a tool. We use it. We implement it. We're the people filling in the spaces, essentially.
The variables.
The variables. If there's any information that's changed with the structure of the contract, that really needs to go back to the employment lawyer. So we would just walk the line and be sure to tell our client that. So I would just say, hey, do you have an employment lawyer? And if they say no, I'd say, okay, well, let us help. Or they had one and maybe they are not working with them. Whatever that scenario is, either they do or we would help them to secure one.
All right. You're helping an employee on board. They're filling out their W-4, so their federal tax form.
Yes.
And you can tell as they're filling it out, like a lot of things are happening in their brain. And then they just start talking to you and they'll say, I don't really know how to fill this out. I have like my own business. My wife also works. I'm having a parent that I care for. Is this a dependent? How should I do my withholdings? What should you do there?
Okay.
I would suggest if they have an accountant to seek expert advice from them, because they would know the implications, what to do in regards to tax time. They know your financial situation.
Correct.
We don't. So find subject matter experts within an accountant category or job profession, not us.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
And they want that. You would want someone who's an expert in that category to advise you on that.
For sure.
Yeah. Like we can look at a W-4 and tell if it's filled out where it can go into payroll. Like I can tell you if it's missing something. Yes. But I have no idea if it's the most appropriate setup for you at tax time. So definitely, yes, that's outside of it. We got to walk that line pretty carefully.
Absolutely.
All right. Last one. Okay. You have a client who will say that they're in the restaurant industry. And they really don't have their OSHA policies developed at all. And they just come to you and they say, hey, HR, you write policies all the time. We need an OSHA policy. And they just leave you at that.
Yes.
What do you do there?
You say, okay, let's find you a company that can write you an OSHA policy. People think that under this umbrella of HR, that we are specialists within everything that falls under HR. And the reality is that we're generalists. Now, there are some things that we're very comfortable managing on a daily basis. When it comes to OSHA policies, which is super specialized, the client wants, any employer wants to have a company that writes those policies every day.
Yeah.
Because they're the specialists and they know exactly what's supposed to be in those policies. So we would definitely help them to find a vendor, a partner that could work with us in ensuring that that policy is correctly written.
Yeah.
So we'd walk the line. I'm hearing Johnny Cash.
Yeah, absolutely. And really in all of these are just great examples of where I think people's first thought is HR can do that,
Mhm.
but it's really HR can help you do that. But
Absolutely.
we're not able to actually do some of these things we talked about today.
We have to walk the line.
Yeah. So today's podcast really comes from our years of experience as HR consultants. And although we consider ourselves HR generalists, and that really means that we're pulled into different conversations. We're asked to do all sorts of different things for a client and give guidance on a myriad of subjects. That often puts us into a place where we're sort of getting outside of the bubble of HR. And we're getting into a subject matter expert area that we're not subject matter experts in. And so we find as consultants, we must be aware of what this line is. And the title of our podcast today is Walk That Line. So the Johnny Cash song, you have to find that line and walk it and don't cross it, or else it could, ultimately lead to bad things for you. And so that's what we do every day. Ultimately, we want to bring awareness to this concept to the business owners out there so that you aren't thrown off guard when your HR team comes to you and they want to bring in a subject matter expert to help.
I see the correlation now. Just like the song title is a metaphor for staying on a straight and narrow path, but it also means to follow through on a commitment to provide the best advice and guidance, right?
That's correct. And as an HR professional, you must be able to recognize that line in your own practice and be able to walk that line, as the song says, and not cross it. And that really comes from being self-aware and knowing how to communicate that to the business owner or senior management about any limitation that you might be feeling. And that's a hard thing to do. And so today we'll go over a couple of reasons of why you, as the business owner, should hear them out when they come to you and ask to bring in that SME.
So Megan, you mentioned that there are a lot of different fields that HR generalists work in. Could you provide some examples of those fields?
Yeah, so the first two I'm going to talk about are the traditional ones that everyone knows about and thinks of when they think of HR. So employee on and offboarding, hiring and firing employees, and then employee counseling. But we're also involved in payroll, in legal items for the business, compliance, health and safety. We help develop corporate procedures like handbooks. We help with benefits administration, training, recruitment, operational risk, and diversity, equity, and inclusion.
I'm sure there are many instances where we as HR professionals have been in compromising situations where we had to walk the line, aka not stray from the righteous path. Aaliyah, can you share some of your personal experiences?
Be happy to. I've had many. I think the most common example of when I personally have had to walk the line, as they say, is when a client asks a lawyer to draft a legal document, and then that same client asks HR to edit that document. See, typically the employment lawyer crafts the employment documents that are used within organizations, and then the HR team modifies the variable information from employee to employee, such as employee name, employee title, employee compensation, etc. So in this situation, the client was asking me to edit substantial, significant portions of the document that were, in my opinion, integral to the integrity of the original document. Clients want to save time and money by asking their HR professionals to amend a document. However, legal documents like offer letters, employment agreements, and termination agreements should really be amended by an employment lawyer to ensure that the laws of the state where the employee is working are being honored after those changes are made. Additionally, the time and work that it takes an employment lawyer to complete this type of work is a fraction of the time that it would take an HR professional to research and then to ultimately be able to complete.
Yes, changing any language on a legal document seems risky.
Oh, Liz, it definitely is risky. I remember when we had a client who asked us to change the compensation package for an employee from non-exempt or hourly to exempt or salaried to avoid paying overtime, and also to avoid paying what are called meal penalties, which in the state of California are penalties that an employer pays when their employees do not take their lunch break by the 5th hour of their shift. Beyond the fact that their job description clearly determined that they should be paid on an hourly basis, the request to change their compensation did not align with the employment agreement that the employee had in place. And please excuse me, did I forget to mention that the employee had an employment agreement which specifically stated that they were supposed to be paid hourly? Yes, that little tidbit is very important.
Of all states, California, which is known as the biggest employee-centric state of all.
Oh, yeah. It's hey, listen, we do a lot of business in California, but that is pretty true. I also remember I've been asked to craft a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement for a client's business, which initially I was considering. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DE&I, it's a part of our HR Generalist certification. But ultimately, I realized that a certified diversity, equity, and inclusion professional, which is a person that has a separate certification specifically in DE&I, I think that we determined that they would have been more well suited to do this type of work, as corporate diversity, equity, and inclusion statements are a part of their training. These statements become a part of the mission of companies and organizations, so it's really important, especially in these times. It is important that they are crafted accurately and in a way that aligns with corporate missions and strategic goals.
These are great examples, Aaliyah. Thank you. Seriously, my jaw is dropping.
Yeah, I can keep them coming now. I can keep them coming.
Oh, please, yes. Share some more experiences with us, please.
I've been doing this a long time, Liz. I've been doing this a long time. We often have clients that will reach out to us to make sure that language in their insurance plan documents match the language in their handbooks. And that's definitely important. But in this situation, it's really important to first start with the plan documents. Then, once you've come up with a suggested synopsis, you want to confirm your synopsis with the insurance agent or broker that you're working with to ensure that the handbook is edited correctly to match the plan document versus the plan document matching the handbook. It's a subtle difference, but it's still really important to note. And as I'm sitting here thinking, I remember, Megan, do you remember when we had that really, really lucrative client who hired us as her technical IT recruiters? Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. wait. Can you hear it? Okay.
I can hear it. An interesting story coming along.
We say there's some history here, right? Liz, we were responsible for recruiting, I think it was 5 to 10 technical candidates per week. And, let me just share some of the titles of some of these candidates as far as who we were looking for. I mean, it definitely fell way into the IT world, which was really, outside of some of our experience. And in general, that's not an issue. But these were super technical roles and candidates that we were hiring for. So just as an example, I'll give you a couple of names. Liz, have you ever heard of a Scrum Master? Can you tell me what that is? And by the way, Liz, try to keep it clean, okay?
Okay, I'll try. Let's see. Scrum Master.
Yes. Yep.
Similar, let's say, to a scam detecting master.
Well,
no?
Not quite.
Okay.
Not quite. But let's try one other one.
Okay.
How about an agile coach?
Oh, keep it HR clean?
Keep
still?
it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can.
I'll try my best. Agile coach. Goodness. A coach that can teach you to work and be adaptable in any physical position or environment? No?
Close, but
Okay.
no. Now, Liz, I bet you probably have heard of a systems engineer, but have you heard of a UX designer?
Oh, no, I can't say I have.
Yep. So these were highly technical positions, which require first that background, that real understanding of the role itself. And in addition, just an understanding of the candidates, their own background, their education, their experience. And ultimately, what we determined was that hiring these super technical candidates at such high volume was really ideally suited for a full-time recruiter for that company versus outsourcing it to us as HR consultants.
So going beyond the song's title, Good Old JC, or Johnny Cash, sang about his devotion and pledge to stay on the right path, stay committed, and not give into temptation or distractions that could threaten his relationship. So HR professionals must be like JC and walk the line to
That's right.
essentially safeguard the company and themselves. This can really apply to all professionals because not going outside their own scope of practice or field of expertise should exemplify a commitment to their profession and obligations they need to follow. So when HR professionals find themselves in such a difficult scenario with employers or clients, what are the recommendations for talking with them? Megan, can you give us some advice on that, please?
Absolutely. And it's a tough spot to be in, I'll be honest. HR often gets a bad rap for being the brakes of an organization, saying, hold on a minute, have we thought about this? Is it compliant? It's not fun to sometimes be that voice. However, it's critical as a business owner that you understand that the real danger here is if we do cross that line and we give information and we sort of ignore our gut, we may be giving you incorrect information that can ultimately cause harm for the business. For example, in the case of payroll taxes, a very minor issue with the setup of an account could cause big problems at the end of the year for a business. So sometimes all we need to do is reach out to a CPA or call that state's tax authority to get the right answer. Additionally, it's important to understand that bringing in that subject matter expert will likely save the company money. For example, it might take me hours to dig through the law to find an answer to a question that an attorney would know immediately. And yes, an attorney's hourly rate is definitely higher. However, they're going to be much faster and more accurate when we really need an answer that's buried in the law somewhere.
Absolutely. Aaliyah, could you help close us out on some final thoughts, please?
Sure. What I'll leave you with is, as HR professionals, we're usually comfortable in the uncomfortable. When things get tough, managers often turn to HR to make those tough decisions or help them to work together to make those tough decisions. So we're used to being in that space. However, when HR comes to you as a business owner and says, I am uncomfortable, this crosses a line for me, as a business owner, please listen to them, because listening to that HR professional is ultimately in the best interest of your business.
Very true. Please stay tuned and remember to like or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Core Business Resources.
Thank you so much for listening to Your Human Resource. If you need more hands-on support from our team, visit cbrhr.com and fill out our contact form. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. We'll see you in the next episode.